Well, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Um, we'll give it just 1 minute and then I'll turn it over to Anna. And it was very fun seeing the questions that a few of you submitted, because it made me realize that there's things about iNaturalist that I don't know yet. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation. We are recording as promised, and I will plan to put that up on YouTube and send you the link along with any follow-up information that comes up.
And are you seeing my slides still, Margaret?
I am not.
You're not. Okay, sorry, just 1 second. That's my fault. We're getting out of there.
Yep.
How about now?
You're good. You can take it away. Thank you.
Great. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to this evening's chat about how to use iNaturalist as a nature engagement tool. I'm really pleased that Margaret invited me to speak about this. I'm very, very passionate about iNaturalist, and you'll see as I present. I'm very excited. I've been using it for about 4 years. I'm not an expert, but I do use it every day, and I learn something every day. So I'm going to go over all the things that I've learned. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as came through as possible. And any questions that I can't ask, I have been communicating with folks at iNaturalist to get answers for things. So if there's anything that we missed today, we'll definitely be following up with you with a follow-up email from Margaret. So let's get started. So I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. Some of you on the call, you might know me already. My name is Anna Kahanui. I'm originally from Hawaii, but I live in Burke, Virginia now in Fairfax County. I have 2 jobs. My 9-to-5 job is with the U.S. Green Building Council. I've been there for about 17 years. But my second job is co-founder of Capital Nature. And Capital Nature is a nonprofit here in the DC area that our goal is to promote the cool nature activities that are happening in the area by combing all the different calendars of all the different organizations such as Audubon Naturalist Society, Smithsonian, Rock Creek Conservancy, Audubon, to bring all of those their events to our website for a one-stop shop to find events. I'm also a forest therapy guide. So if any of you have heard of forest bathing or forest therapy, I do those too, which I love doing that. I've also been very involved for the last 4 years on the City Nature Challenge, which is a big global BioBlitz, which I'll talk about later on in the presentation. And then I am a citizen science geek, and I'm on the steering committee of this small consortium of folks called the Washington Area Citizen Science Network. And so there are a bunch of organizations that have citizen science programs. So that's me. So speaking of citizen science, what is citizen science? I'm assuming, I'm sure lots of you know what it is, but if you don't, in a nutshell, it's also known as community science, but it's when you get a bunch of people together to gather information. The scientists, when they put out these hypotheses and these tests, they can't do it all themselves. They can't be in the field. They can't do all the work themselves. So by sort of crowdsourcing, by coming up with a problem that they want to get solved or a data set that they want to collect, is just citizen science is simply gathering people to help gather that information. So what is iNaturalist? It's a social app. It's a nature platform. It's a bunch of different things. I wanted to just point out here this picture on the right. This is one of my mentors. Some of you may have been on her presentations. She is a local author and naturalist. Her name is Melanie Chukas Bradley, and she has written the book called City of Trees, which is the only field guide to trees in the DC area. And here she is actually during a City Nature Challenge event. This is a tree identification walk on the Capitol grounds. And so we have everyone standing around with iNaturalist poised and ready to go as she's showing us seeds to take pictures of so that we can identify trees. So iNaturalist it's a place where you record what you see in nature. It's very social, so you're meeting other nature lovers, and I'll talk about how you can do that, how you can learn about nature, and then by contributing to science. And so that's the biggest, I take a lot of photos. I'm a nature photographer, and when I learned that pictures that we take on our phones and cameras could contribute to scientific research, I just thought that was so cool. And so now when I'm out and about and talking up iNaturalist, I ask people, do you take pictures of nature on your phone? Well, did you know that you could contribute to science? And that seems to get people excited about it. So, you know, with smartphones these days, if you have your location services checked off in terms of things being tagged for where you took the photos, it's very easy to just take some pictures and upload them to iNaturalist, and we'll show you how that works. And you can do it as a family unit as well, which is great. It's a nice family thing. I like the fact that it works across multiple platforms. So yes, you're using it on your phone. There's slightly different interfaces between Android and iPhone, like a button might have a different name or something like that, and we'll go over that in a little bit. And then I'm gonna hopefully toggle over to the website, on the live website, and show you some of the things that make how robust the actual desktop program for iNaturalist is. You can do a lot more when you log in on your computer than what you can do on your phone. So I'm not sure if anyone's done this yet or if you've watched the videos or anything, but the first place to start is you need to create your free iNaturalist account. So you just visit iNaturalist.org, or you can go to the app stores and for either types of device, give yourself a username, and then sign in and just start taking photos. And that's pretty much how that is in a nutshell how you get started. So here, once you get started, and when you go on the when you go on the desktop, you're going to be able to look at your dashboard. And this is a dashboard. Yeah, so this is a screenshot of my dashboard. On the right there, it shows you my username. It's Anna_Kahanui, because I'm sure you're all going to remember Kahanui, right? And it's got observations that I've made, and at the top there, it's my world. So it shows how many observations I've made to date, how many species I've captured, things that I've identified. And so this is sort of in a nutshell, you know, how I've been doing the last 4 years. And I'm pretty proud of that. I just went over 2,000 observations, I think, last weekend. So I was really excited. And you can see with those green flags that it says research grade. And we're going to talk about that because there's different grades of information and levels of identification on iNaturalist. And so we'll go through those a little bit later. So what is an observation? It is an encounter between you and an organism at any particular time at one particular place. So if I am at, so let's see, Lake Barton near my home in Burke here, and I take a picture of this turtle, and I go back an hour later and take a picture of the turtle, it might be the same turtle on the same log, it's a different observation. So you don't have to, you know, so it's one place in time between that interaction. And so a couple things, once I have taken this picture, I can take multiple pictures. It's going to suggest to me some things, possible species, and we'll look at that in a second. It's going to show me a map here of where I made this observation. It's going to tell me the time and the date. And so a lot of information just by once you get that first observation in there. And so here's sort of a little schematic. So iNaturalist captures who you are, what you saw, when you saw it, evidence of what you saw, which in most cases is a photograph, but sometimes it can be audio files, and then where you saw it. So those are the sort of the pieces of an observation. How does it work? Well, it's magic. No, they have about probably more than 18 million photos now that have trained a computer vision model to do artificial intelligence. And so it's really important that the pictures that we take and put into iNaturalist are good pictures, good clear pictures, because if we're all taking these crazy blurry pictures of something when we, you know, that's very unidentifiable, those are just going to kind of mess up the algorithms. So the nicer and clearer pictures and in focus pictures that we can get are going to help with that artificial intelligence. And that's what it's doing, is it's looking at your picture and it's comparing it to these 18 million other pictures to see if there's something similar that it can help make recommendations on. So it makes species recommendations. So for example, here is a violet, and we all know that there's lots of different types of violets, and I am not an expert on violets. And so from that picture, iNaturalist has figured out it's a violet, great. But see how many different types it's going to give me its top 10 suggestions. And just because it gives me the top 10 suggestions doesn't mean any of these, it doesn't mean the top one is correct. It's just literally just giving you, like, we think it might be one of these. So what I encourage you to do is, if you know at the least category that you know it's a violet, at least put violet. If you don't even know it's a violet, put down that it's a plant. Because if you leave it blank, it's going to say unknown. And so the folks that are at iNaturalist, all the different researchers and specialists, when they come up and see a batch of observations that's all say unknown, that just creates a lot of work for everybody. So if it at least is put in the proper sort of taxa, that's really going to help people, because there are people all over the world, and there are over 1 million users of this app globally. There is a violet specialist probably in Russia. And if I post this picture up, somebody like 2 minutes later in Russia is going to be like, oh, Anna, this is a marsh blue violet, you know, that type of thing. So you never know who's out there watching your stuff and helping you identify stuff. So the more information that you can, you want to make an educated guess, but don't think you have to know. When I go out every day walking my dog on the trails in Burke, and I'm constantly making things, I don't know what I'm looking at half the time. I look and try to get what the suggestions are, and then that sort of helps me on my path to kind of look things up. I might look on a couple different other apps to see if I can kind of narrow it down. So I mentioned, and I don't expect you to be able to read this, I just wanted you, this is available on their website. They have a really nice FAQs section. It's just to show you that making an observation with an iPhone or an Android is just a little bit different. They call things a little bit different sometimes on the buttons. It's the same process where you're observing, you're showing when and where, you're saving it. I think one is upload, one is sync, and these are actually constantly changing too. I was on a call with one of my good friends, Carrie Seltzer, works for iNaturalist. She lives locally, and she's my go-to person for iNaturalist questions. And I was on a call with her a week or two ago, and she just said, they're constantly making upgrades. So even these little things that I have here, from this presentation from earlier this summer, it could be a little different. So I don't expect you to have to read this or anything. You can also make observations from the web, and so you can do it from your phone, but you can also, like I said, I'm a photographer. I'll take 100 pictures on my camera. I'll come home and I can log in and press an upload button and upload as many pictures as I want. I can do 100 at a time. It's called a batch, kind of a batch upload. And it's great because I can go and then organize things so that I took these 4 pictures of a cardinal, so I can put those all together and say that's a cardinal, that type of thing. You can kind of organize things. So I encourage you to definitely explore going on the web and checking it out. So let's just kind of walk through making an observation. So you put your phone down, you take a picture. It's going to ask if you want to retake the picture. Do you like the picture that you took? Is it blurry? Did your hand move? Retake the picture if you need to. Doesn't matter. Take it as many pictures as you want. When we move over to the second panel here, it's going to show you that first picture that you took, and it's going to default it as sort of your title or your thumbnail or the front picture. Then you can add more pictures, and we definitely encourage that. We don't encourage people just to take one picture and kind of move on, because that's not really going to help people identify the species. We're going to go over tips on what kinds of pictures you need to take to identify certain taxa. So you just know that you have a plus button up there to take more than one photo. After you do that, you just kind of click this little button that says, or this area, what did you see? And that's when the AI kicks in. That's when the artificial intelligence kicks in, and that's when they're going to give you this third pane here, which are the recommendations. But before we go there, let's kind of finish looking at what we have on the rest of the second panel here. Again, it is notating the date and time, the location that I took the picture, my geo privacy. I do have a slide about that, so I'll talk about that in a second. Basically, if it's a private picture that no one can tell where it is, or if it's something that's open where everyone else can see, and we'll go over that in a second. Captive cultivated. This is something that we try in iNaturalist to observe things, if possible, of things in the wild. There are definitely cases where you're getting things that are not in the wild. For example, if you are at a pollinator garden that everyone's planted those, a group of volunteers have planted that pollinator garden, well, any of the species that are identified in that pollinator garden, and here's an example of that. I went over to the Burke Library, which has a beautiful pollinator garden, and started making observations. But I need to note that those are captive cultivated, because those didn't happen naturally. Man and woman put them there. So those are considered captive cultivated, and I would mark those as such. And to note that captive and cultivated observations don't achieve the research grade, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then projects, there are tons of projects. Oops, let me go back down, sorry about that. there are all kinds of projects, both locally and globally, that you can participate in. So I'm going to give some examples of some of the projects that I've worked on. And once you go and join these projects, every observation that you make is going to be just automatically part of this project. An example of that would be, actually, Margaret, you created a project for the Burke Library. And so if any of you guys are going to the Burke Library and you decide to make some iNaturalist observations while you're over there, there's already a project there that it's going to pick up. If you have your phone tagged for geotagging your picture to show up exactly within the boundaries that Margaret has established, those are going to show up in that project. Okay, so moving over to the third pane, again, we're looking at the different recommendations that iNaturalist has made, getting down to the genus. So like, we can't tell from your picture exactly what species it is, but we can get you to the genus. That's helpful. That's helpful. So, you know, if you agree with that, then you would go ahead and click on that. So selecting geoprivacy, basically there's 3 levels of geoprivacy. There's open, where everybody can see it. There's obscured, where it kind of narrows it down to a circle on the map, but it doesn't do the exact pinpoint. And then private, where it's completely hidden, and only sort of the admins, only the admins can see it. And so I don't recommend, like, you know, people might want to use private if they do an observation in their backyard and they don't want to know that people are, that you observe that wildflower in your backyard. But the location is very important, because that's how people are determining, trying to help you identify it. You know, there are certain species that aren't on the East Coast that are on the West Coast, and that type of thing. So having it open where people can see where it was actually observed, that's really critical and a helpful piece in helping to identify. Now, obscured also comes into effect when you get to endangered species. So for example, if you observe a bald eagle, you know, iNaturalist knows that's an endangered species. So they might not put down exactly the point where you saw that bird. It'll probably obscure it a little bit so that, you know, they don't attract attention to those endangered species. So those are some of the things about geoprivacy. And before I move on, Margaret, are there any questions? I haven't, has anything come in that I need to address?
Nothing on the chat.
Great, thanks. Okay, I'll keep going, and just feel free to ask questions, guys, and I can certainly stick around for questions at the end as well. So what do the colors on the map mean? So when you're poking around on the web and you're looking at the app and let's say you look up, this happens to be, oh gosh, Point Bonita Lighthouse. Does anyone know where that is? I don't even know where that is. Maybe that's in California, not sure. Anyway, I just wanted to illustrate the different colors of the tags, the little pinpoints. They represent different types of observations. And then one thing that I learned in the last probably 2 years that I didn't know is when you see the little white dots in there, that means it was a research grade in the pin. So anything that doesn't have a little white dot in the middle of that pin didn't achieve research grade. You can turn off the auto uploads in your settings. One of the questions that we got was, you know, I don't want to use my data when I'm out using iNaturalist. That's totally fine. You can go into the settings of the app and you can uncheck automatic upload so that things are just kind of sitting in there until you get home, and then you can go and upload stuff. So you don't have to do it right from the spot. I know when we were on BioBlitzes for a couple hours, you know, we'll like want to bring like phone chargers with us, you know, and make sure that we, you know, don't, you know, lose our batteries and all that kind of stuff. So all of these types of things, you can just take pictures. That's the one thing I'll mention here too, is I take a lot of pictures just on my phone and then upload them to iNaturalist. That's one way of doing it. You can, and if you're an Android user, something that I learned, if you're an Android user, if you go to your gallery of photos and you do share, I can share it directly to iNaturalist. And which is really cool. It's like sort of like a shortcut. Like I can go onto my picture, I can go into my camera gallery on my Android and pick 3 pictures of I probably took 20 pictures of mushrooms today. I could go and pick 3 pictures, share directly to iNaturalist and start making my observation. Great. Now I brought it up with our iNaturalist expert friend, you know, why can't iPhone users do that? And it has to do with the developers that work on the back end of the app. The developer that works for iPhone stuff He is also the developer for all the artificial intelligence technology. So he's got like 2 projects on his plate, whereas the Android guy only has 1 project on his plate. And so he's able to kind of push things through faster in terms of innovations and things happening. But they did tell me that hopefully with iPhone, and I could be wrong, if anybody has an iPhone right now and can do this, let me know. If that's upgraded, then I'll stop talking about that. But that was one thing that I learned.
No, we had a question come in from Hank. Apparently his location is not automatically recorded when, I guess you're doing it on your cell phone, Hank. And he wants to know how to make it do that. And I remember I had that problem too when I first started.
The location settings on your phone in general need to be enabled. So location, like you need to go in the general settings of your phone and make sure that those are turned on. So that, and then let's see, and then in your settings on, I'm just pulling mine up right now. Looking at my settings. I'm pretty sure that if your photos are automatically geotagged when you take the picture, when you upload it to iNaturalist, that should come over with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you do have to have location services turned on.
Yeah, I think because for some reason I thought there might be a location button on the app settings itself, but I don't see one in there.
No,
So
I think it's,
I would,
and it won't do it in retrospect. You have to have that on before you take the picture. Another question came in from Carol here. Can you share multiple pics of the same item from your Android gallery to a single observation?
I have been able to do that. Yep. So I've been able to pick 3 pictures of a mushroom and do share and get all 3 of them up there. So you don't have to do it individually. Yeah.
She went on to say it usually does, but sometimes it's way off and then I have to correct it.
Oh.
Better tell that guy.
Yeah. So what I was telling Margaret before we started, guys, that and she was kind enough to give me your questions, and I'm looking at them as we go and trying to cover them as much as possible. Anything that we can't answer this evening, any questions that we get, I'm gonna follow up with iNaturalist and try to get answers for you. So like I said, I don't work for iNaturalist. They're not paying me any money or anything. I just love talking about it. So, but we will definitely, any questions that aren't clear, Margaret, we'll work together to get the question list distributed to everybody. That's a good question. Thanks. But I was just glad. I mean, I've used iPhone and Samsung, but I was just glad to have my Android so I could share directly. That's just me. Okay, the desktop features. So I'm going to show you a couple things here on this screenshot, and then I'm going to attempt to go and share my live screen. But just a couple things. So here I've logged into myself, and I can look at my profile. You know, you can upload your picture. You can say a little bit about yourself. You can click on your observations. A calendar shows you every day you went and made an observation. So it's like, oh, when was that day that I went and had that great mushroom thing last month? Oh, I can look at that. IDs, if I'm doing identifications, lists. I don't think I have any lists, but lists are like, if you want to keep your own personal lists of like, I think I'm going to keep a bird list and I'm going to keep a wildflower list, that type of thing. A journal, if you want to make journal entries based on observations that you're making. I haven't used that much. You can favorite things like, oh, this is the best, you know, bird picture I've ever taken. Let's favorite these. And then projects. So all of these are the types of things that that you see. So I am going to attempt to go and share my screen real quick. Let's see if I can do that. And if I can't, okay. Can you see that now? Yes. Yay. Okay, cool. All right. So here are my observations, latest observations. And I wanted to show you in terms of finding like people. So you can follow people. So this is the greatest thing about the desktop thing, is that I learned during the City Nature Challenge that there was a young guy who I think he's in high school or just graduated in Fairfax. His name is Luca. It goes by Luca Reptile. And he is like expert identifier for herpetology, for herps, for reptiles and amphibians. And so he's one of the people that you can tag, you can follow him. And so like if I have an observation, I can go into an observation and then and I'll do an example of this in a second. I can tag him to be like, hey Luca, is this really a Eastern, Easter painted turtle? And he's usually good about getting back to me. So it's you're making this network of naturalists all around the world. Sometimes people are just admiring your photo. Sometimes people will just say, pop you and say like, wow, Anna, that's a great picture of a mushroom you got, or something like that. So if I go up into more, let's see, no, I'm going to do identify. I'm hitting this identify here. Hold down. Nope, I didn't want to do that. Sorry, let me go back. Community is what I want. Okay, so I pull down the community bar here and see there's people. So I am going to click on people. And I'm going to go up here on the right and I'm going to search for somebody. So I don't know if I follow Margaret, but I'm going to type in Margaret's name. Did I spell it? Is S-H-E-R?
No C, F-I-S-H-E-R.
Wait, S-E, no C, S-H-E-R. Got it. Sorry about that. I'm going to do search. Uh-oh. Do you go by something else in here?
Well, my username is Emmy Fisher.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting that it didn't even here. Let me just do Fisher and see what happens. Okay, so then we get a bunch of Fishers here. So I could go down and see if I could find Margaret, maybe. Lots of Fishers. Oh my goodness. Oh, there's tons of Fishers. Okay, so not a good example. Not a good example. Here. I'm going to look up my friend Saranella. Saranella is one of my good friends. She's a mycologist and environmental educator at the Audubon Naturalist Society. So I'm going to click on her or put her name in. And so that's how I can see Saranella. I can learn about her. I can look at her observations. And she's a mushroom fanatic, so she's got a lot of mushrooms and stuff. So I can also follow her. So let me go back. I click on her. Yep. And then I think I think I'm already following her, that's why. Okay, there's usually like a little button that you click that says like follow this person. So that's what you would want to do if you wanted to follow someone.
Yeah, it's at the top.
Do you see it?
Yeah, it says
oh, there it is,
stop,
I'm sorry. I was looking for a different button. Yeah, so I don't want to stop following her, but that's where it would be like follow this person. So what you'll find is when you're making observations, let's say you notice that somebody named Dan Mitchell from California is identifying all your bird shots. Well, I mean, follow Dan, like go look at Dan's observations, and if they interest you, then follow him, just because you can see things that he posted and stuff like that. I'm going to go back to my observations, and I'm going to click on, oh, and I uploaded some of these, but I didn't finish them. That's why they say unknown. So sorry about that. Let's go down to something better. Let's look at this tar spot. Okay, so here's the observation. I guessed that was something called black tar spot. That was as close as I could get. Wasn't sure about it. Somebody named Megashiel came up and said, we disagree with you, Anna. We don't think it's black tar spot. We actually think it's American tar spot. So then I went and looked at American tar spot and compared the pictures of it to mine and thought it was a closer match. So this person helped me get closer. So I went ahead and agreed with that person. And then it looks like someone else has come behind us and said, yep, they agree with that. So basically over here, it's a community sourced validation. It's not just me in a box trying to figure out what I've identified. It's the community coming through and helping me do that, okay? And so someone asked, you know, how do I make comments, or how do I, so it's down here in an individual observation that you have, there's always a comment box. So you could come down here and if I look in this bottom right here, these are the top identifiers for American tar spot. And so I could, there's this James SKM, you know, I could just at James KM. There he is. I could at him and just ask him a question about this, like, are you sure, or where do you know? So I could ask a specific. You can. That's how you can communicate with these people. So it's really nice to be able to look down here at the top identifiers of that. Okay. Also, these projects. These are projects that I've joined. Science Friday is really interesting. It's just like a global 24/7 BioBlitz. It's just happening all the time around the world. So you don't have to be in a specific place. So anything I do goes on there. I just participated in the biodiversity of the Anacostia River BioBlitz, which I'll talk about in a second. And then also Northern Virginia Conservation Trust is doing a month-long nature BioBlitz right now. So anything that I observe in the state of Virginia is also getting included in that particular project.
Anna, Kit asks, how can I find an iNaturalist project near me?
Ooh, I think, let's see, let's go to projects. So I'm gonna go up to community and go to projects. Now there's a search button here, and I think you can just put in, I thought there was a button for like find projects near me, which actually there's on your phone. Here, let me just click really quick. I'm gonna look on my phone. I think that was the easiest way for me to join stuff is I go to, let's see, and I'm sorry that I'm not sharing this with you guys. I haven't figured out the cool thing about how you show your phone live yet. Okay, so I'm just hitting on projects, yeah. So when I hit projects on my phone, there are 3 different tabs. One of them says the ones that I've joined, so it shows the list that I've joined. There's one that says nearby. So basically it's just looking at my location and finding projects nearby. So I'm gonna hit on nearby, and there should be a huge, yeah, there's a huge list. So Lake Akating Park, I haven't joined that one yet. There's Wolf Trap Woodland Garden. I go to Wolf Trap all the time. I should join that one. So you can join as many projects as you want, and your observation just counts, you know, with all those different ones. It's not like you're making one for this one for that one. It just at the same time goes to all these different things. Rest and BioBlitz, I've participated in that. And then featured, I'm just going to go to featured. They're just like some random ones that iNats decided to put in there. One of them is the flora of Russia. In case I wanted to join the flora of Russia, I probably wouldn't. But anyway, so that's, for the projects, it looks like it's a little more intuitive to do it on your phone. However, if I'm just going to put in Virginia in here and see what happens when I do Virginia. See what happens. Okay, so 344 projects come up. Birds of Virginia, Virginia biodiversity, Virginia native plants. There's so many different ones. In Bloom, Virginia, lichens in West Virginia. So anything that interests you, you definitely want to go through these projects and just join them. And a lot of them, it's just a matter of clicking a button that says join. And sometimes there might be a question like, why do you want to join this mushroom project? You just say, because I love mushrooms, then they'll let you in, you know, to make sure that you're not a spam thing, basically. Okay, so that was in community. Let's see. So we looked at observation. So explore. I'm going to hit the explore button. Let's say you're like me and you're crazy about fungi. So I'm just going to put in fungi, and I'm just going to pick the top level fungi here. And it's going to pull almost 3 million observations of fungi. So if I want, this is the global one. So this is all over the world. So if I had some time tonight and I wanted to go through 3 million observations of fungi, I could do that. I might say, oh, you know, let's put Fairfax in here. Fairfax, Virginia. Let's do Fairfax County, actually. So Fairfax County, Virginia gets us down to 17,000. So again, if I want to sit around and check out what's going on in Fairfax County, I can look at the observations, the species, who's identifying them, and who's observing them. So I've actually, fun story, like during the City Nature Challenge, one of the stars of the City Nature Challenge was this woman who was on here. Her name was Isabella Farr. And I think she lives in the Reston, Vienna area. And I had only known her on iNaturalist. And I happened to be in Wolf Trap a couple weeks ago. I'm friends with, I was doing an event there. So the event people knew I was there. She heard I was there. She actually waited around in the parking lot for me to come back to my car because she heard I was there, because we've connected so well on iNaturalist with commenting and liking each other's stuff and getting identification help that it was so great to meet her in person. It was distanced, we had masks on, but it was great. So like there's this community that you get to think. How are we doing on questions? We doing okay on questions?
All right, so one more came in just now. How can I set up my projects of the place that I go, maybe to do phenology about specific plants in specific areas from year to year?
Great question. I do have a slide on that a little bit later, so we will get to that. That's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the live site now. Just again, I highly recommend that if you are enjoying using iNaturalist, you'll get so much more out of it if you go just play around and poke around on the website, just because there's so much you can learn. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. These little numbers on each of the pictures here, that just tells you how many pictures are in that stack of cards. They call these cards. Each one of these pictures is called a card. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my slides and put it back in the presenter mode. Okay, moving on. Okay, we already did some questions. Let's see, what to observe. Okay, so for me, it's really simple. I think you should start with what you love, okay? I think you guys know I love mushrooms, so I'm gonna take pictures of those. I also love butterflies and birds and trees. So those are the things that I pretty much observe. So it's so easy. Like, you do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever you're taking pictures of anyway. You know, if you're out taking pictures of mushrooms and butterflies, you know, no need to go further. You could just do that the whole time. So I'd start with things that you love. What are you noticing? One of the major tenets when we're doing a forest bathing walk or forest therapy walk, which in a nutshell is a very slow, like basically slowing down and experiencing nature with all your senses. That's pretty much what a forest bathing walk is. And what we're constantly asking throughout our experience is, what are you noticing? Because we are all so busy with our jobs and our families and the pandemic that we're just like not noticing stuff. And so we're not observing, we're not paying attention. And so when you slow down and start looking at things, you're gonna see details that you never saw before. So those are the types. So in the springtime, I became obsessed with like baby leaves. Like as things were budding, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. It looks different than the other one. So then I just started taking a series of pictures of all these different baby leaves. So it's just, what are you noticing? Some things are easy to ID. I actually am such a nerd that I carry around a sweet seed ball pod in my camera bag so that I can demo iNaturalist at any time. And so because it is such an easily recognizable thing that when you do there's pretty much, unless it was a really bad picture, someone might think it's a sea urchin or something, it's going to get identified pretty quickly. And then we have the tulip tree leaves on the left, which very identifiable diagnostic type of leaf, very easy for iNaturalist to pick up. Some things are easy to photograph because they don't move away from you. So I have the Virginia bluebells here, which I took at Teddy Roosevelt Island a year or two ago. On the right is it's not an in focus picture, but it is one of my favorite iNat observations that I have personally made. And when I took this picture, it was during a City Nature Challenge a year or two ago, downtown in DC on a tree. I saw this insect. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a picture of this insect. I'm like, oh, this insect's not moving. Why isn't this insect moving? Well, I learned that this is a fly death fungus. It's basically a zombie fly. So a fungus has infiltrated this fly. It's gone into its body and taken control over its brain. It's made it go grasp the tip of this bud and spread its wings out and paralyze itself. And it has babies inside and they all burst out like alien. Super gross. But like, this is super cool. Like this, I have taken a picture of a zombie fly. And so those are the types of things that you discover when you're out and about doing slow stuff. Others, not so much. I love dragonflies and damselflies, but as we know, they don't sit still very often. However, once you start observing things for a while and you have a little bit of patience, you'll notice behaviors of these different species so that you can get the shot. So, you know, a lot of these dragonflies, they like to perch. Sometimes they'll perch in this sort of horizontal position. Sometimes they'll perch up and down, which is called obelisking. They'll perch and then they'll zoom away for a second and then they'll come back like 10 seconds later. So if you see them perching on there and you miss the shot, just stay there for like another 10 or 20 seconds and it'll probably come back, as long as you don't disturb it or scare it. So once you learn those behaviors, same with the birds. You know, birds are really hard to get, but if you can get like something that's really indicative of the species, like I pretty much only have the head mostly in focus in that picture, but that's enough for someone to know that that's a cardinal. If I had just gotten the red tail, it could have been a couple other red species. So it might not have been as helpful. Wild versus captive cultivated. So while my dog Lonnie here on the left thinks that she is a wild animal, she is not wild. And so if I were to take a picture of Lonnie and put her on iNaturalist, which I have not, I would have to mark her captive cultivated. So we have a lot of situations in iNaturalist where people, when they start using the app, they're like, oh, I'm going to take a picture of my cat. I'm going to take a picture of my little brother. I'm going to take a picture of like all this stuff, you know? So again, we're focusing on wild things. So same with something that here's a bonsai that was obviously curated, or the slipper orchid that's at a botanical garden. So these are things that are not wild. And so we want to focus on the wild. And but if for some reason you're taking, like I said, with the pollinator garden, if you still want to document those species and get help with IDs and stuff, just mark it captive cultivated, that's all. Signs and remnants. So I love this one. Kids love this one because we talk about poop. Basically, it's not just a living organism. It can be evidence of life. And so if skulls, skin, wings, feathers, cocoons, scat, tracks, all of these things, carcasses, if you can get some pictures that are going to help people identify it, then it's still up for grabs for an iNat observation. So you want to get details. Now, here's case in point. I was doing the Anacostia River BioBlitz last weekend. I came across a very large carcass. I don't know what it was. It was about 2 feet long. I didn't get close enough to get detailed pictures because it was kind of gross and fly and stuff. And so like nobody can identify it. Like they think it's either a raccoon or a fox or something like that. But I mean, my picture is not enough information for people to make an ID.
Let me interject. Someone's asking, what is a BioBlitz?
Oh, great question. I have a whole section on it. We're moving forward and we'll get to that. Sorry about that. Okay, tips for observing. You want to get close. You definitely want to get a picture showing your species in context. Like, is it on a tree? Is it on the ground? Is it up in the air? But then you want to try to get as close as possible without disturbing it. And so sometimes you can just kind of stand back and zoom in depending on what you're using, but you need details. And especially for insects, you know, because there's so many gazillion insects, it's really hard to get a really good in-focus picture of an insect. So a lot of times it takes multiple pictures. So if you get a picture of like the back that shows the wings, but then you're able to kind of walk around it and get a picture of the head so that you can see where the antennae connect and the eyes and how they're, you know, how that all works. Getting a series of a couple pictures are going to help paint that picture for identification. Focus. I've mentioned this before. Please don't upload blurry photos to iNaturalist. There's so many. I'm not even one of those power users that's in the back going through everything, but I know people that do, and I know how frustrated they are when they just see someone who uploads like 20 million blurry photos. It's just not happy. So to demonstrate that, I did another one this week for a video. I took a blurry photo on the left of the sweet gum, and then I took a little more clear one on the right just to kind of show the difference. You just want to make sure that, you know, our cameras like to focus on lots of different stuff, our highfalutin cameras on our phones. Just make sure you adjust yourself so that you're in focus before you take the shot. Select your focus is also important. We don't want you walking down a path, holding your phone up to the forest and taking a picture, because there could be 10, 20 species in that picture and no one's going to know what you're looking for. So you need to zoom in and get to, like, you need to be able, your picture needs to basically stay, look at this, what is this? So this picture on the left, it looks like it has one species for the most part, but if there were 2 other species next to that, that is not a picture that I would submit to iNaturalist. I'd probably crop it, so I would just get the one species. So selecting your focus area, really important. Separate your subject if possible. So if you're able to kind of get, you know, your object in the foreground so that things are blurry in the back, sometimes you can do that with your phones these days, both your phones on your phone cameras, but also your real cameras. I like to carry around, sometimes I'll have a piece of cardboard or paper in my camera bag, and I'll put it behind, like, let's say you're looking at some pine needles or something. Really hard to take pictures of pine needles. So like if you put the piece of paper or cardboard behind the pine needles, you're giving them a background so that I can see that it's clumps of 3 or clumps of 2, and that's going to help with identification. Capturing the detail, super important. So yep, lots of dragonflies out there, but I was, you know, if you can get in and get close-ups on what the eye color is or what the wing colors are, or any of the details on this snapping turtle, those are all really helpful. And the picture on the right, actually, some of the pictures in this presentation are by Katja Schultz, and she works at the Natural History Museum, and she and I did a presentation just on taking photos for iNaturalist, so some of these are from her as well. She's an amazing photographer. Try different perspectives. So I was walking around and I saw this cool moss. Well, that's great. It's great moss. Looks kind of fuzzy and cute, but you want to get down there. You want to get down with the moss. You want to get close because you won't be able to see the details. You want people to be able to see the details of what they can try to identify. Katya also has a nice example of that too with these frogs here, where typically people are just kind of shooting like, oh, there's a frog, I'm gonna take a picture of it. But this guy on the left here, he was smart enough to get down on eye level and not startling whatever he's doing. So you can get that better picture. Working with others is great. I want to mention that iNaturalist account holders have to be 13 years or older. So you don't have a lot of kids, little kids running around with iNaturalist, but kids are closest to the ground and they can find stuff. So let the kids find stuff. Let one of your other family members, an aunt or an uncle or grandma or grandpa, hold the item while you take the picture. It can be very a very family-oriented activity. This is a group from Corazon Latino. They were at Rock Creek Park for City Nature Challenge. So a couple tips. You want to replace any disturbed microhabitats. So, try not to trample over everything. And if you turn over a log, you want to gently put the log back so you don't like disturb the folks that were living there. Bring a phone charger if you think that your phone's not going to last while you're out there for a while. We already talked about decide if you want to have an automatic upload on your settings or if you want to wait till you get home. I like to keep things in my camera bag for scale. A lot of times it could just be a coin or a little ruler. I also have a little mirror that I put, it's a little actually makeup mirror that has lights on it. I'll show a picture of that in a second, where you can put it under, I take a lot of mushroom pictures, so you get pictures underneath the mushrooms. Using a hand lens or a loop, when you want to get really close. Even flashlights to get a little more light on your subject. And I already mentioned the piece of white paper or cardboard. Okay, some of my favorite things to observe, trees and shrubs. Okay, so I'm a tree lover. And so when you're taking a picture of a tree for a naturalist, you don't want to just take a picture like the one on the right, because some people might be able to glean what that species is just by shape and the branching, but most people probably not. They're not tree experts. You need to take a couple detailed characteristic pictures. You need to get the leaves. You need to get the top of the leaves, and if the bottom of the leaves, say with a magnolia or a different color, get underneath the leaves as well. How are the leaves attached to the branch? Are they opposite? Are they alternate? Are there any fruits or acorns or samaras or anything that's indicative of that species? Get pictures of that. Take pictures of the bark. That's also really important. So all of these, again, are going to paint the picture that are going to help people get you an identification. Wildflowers and weeds, same thing. You want to just get pictures of the actual maybe flowers, but then how do the leaves attach? Where do the leaves attach to the stem? What's their habitat like? Take that right-hand picture. Take the picture far away so you can kind of see things in context, but then also get those close-up pictures. Even when things aren't flowering, on the right there, like things that are dried, like they don't have flowers already, those are still game too. You don't need the flower. If you can get some other things that are indicative of species, then definitely take those pictures as well. Mushrooms, most people with mushrooms, they see a mushroom and they take a picture from the top down. And if my friend Saranella, the mycologist, were on here, she would say, no, no, no. You want to take pictures underneath from the side because you need to see if there's gills there or there pores. What kind of stuff, what kind of pore distributing structure does it have? So take, a lot of times when you see a bunch of mushrooms like this, some of them are already kind of toppled over, just grab one and take a picture. If you could take a picture of what it's on, is it on a log? Is it on a dead log? Is it under a tree? Where is it? So all these things are going to help with that. And so, yeah, here's a mushroom. So here's my little fashion, my fashion mirror on the right, where I can get these fashion glamour pics of the mushrooms underneath, so you can see the thing. Yeah. Butterflies, we know butterflies look differently when you're looking down from the top and from the side. So if you can get both pictures, that's going to really help folks. Dragonflies and damselflies, same thing. I was talking about obelisking earlier, so that's behavior of this particular one. What do the wing patterns look like? What does their abdomen look like? What's their eye color? What's their behavior? On the right, those are damselflies getting ready to do it. So he's holding her by her neck and he's gonna pull her up and they're gonna mate. So that's what's going on. So yeah, get to know their behaviors. Birds, I love taking pictures of birds. And then, birds, are dimorphic, and there are a lot of species that have the males that look different than the females. And so here we have the mallards. And so very easy. If I post this picture, everybody knows. In fact, this past week for BioBlitz, which I'll talk about in a second, I posted a very blurry picture, bad Anna, but you could tell it was a mallard. You could tell. You could see the green a little bit, and so that it was still identified. Okay, where to observe? Look for hidden things, things that blend in, little crevices, in holes. Obviously be safe, under leaves, in leaf litter, so many places, inside petals of things. You never know what you're going to find in the moss. I love I don't do it as much, but I often travel or walk with people that like to turn logs over. And so you can find all kinds of fun stuff under logs too. Looking in the water too. You'll never know what you're going to see up on top of the water and kind of down in the water, things that are floating around. So that's, definitely include that. Inconspicuous things, don't just look for the obvious things. There's a lot of some slime mold pictures on here. It can be weeds. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be the most gorgeous species of something. You're still contributing to science no matter what you get. So someone asked about doing something in a specific place. So you can actually manually create your own place in iNaturalist. And so, for example, Margaret has done that for the library, for the Burke Library. And basically there's a way to go in there where you manually create the place by, you literally go on a map and you put these little pinpoints of where, little dot to dot to dot to make the boundaries. You give it a name. And once you close it up, it's going to kind of gray out the area that you're looking at, and you'll have created this place. And so a fine example of this is, and I don't think I have the slide, but my friend from iNaturalist, Carrie Salter, she set up a place, it's just her backyard, and it's private to her. It's like her own little private project. And she's observed more than 400 species of plants and critters and insects and all kinds of stuff just in her backyard alone. She has a small backyard in DC. So you can create these own places. So someone had asked the question about, oh, I want to get them just from a park, a certain park. So you can go and create a place for that park. And then any observations that you make that have the coordinates geotagged that fit on that map in that particular boundary line, those are going to show up for the project.
And I'll just interject, there's a few tricks to it. So I after difficult experience, wrote that all out, and I will email you all the instructions.
Oh, that would be great. Because I've done it. I've probably done it like 5 times, but I haven't done it a lot. So yeah, that would be great. That'd be really helpful. Thank you. So yeah, you can make your own place. Oh yeah, so I did put Carrie's slides in here. So Carrie shared this with us, her home biodiversity. So most observations were bees. She's got 71 observations of the purple passion flower. I'm super jealous of that. Squirrels, bees, that type of thing. So this is just her personal thing. So if you just want to do it for your yard, or if you want to do it like you want to work with your homeowners association and do it within the boundaries of your neighborhood, or wherever you're doing volunteer work, if you're working on a particular project, some gardening area that you just want to document not only the captive cultivated stuff that you guys plant, but then all the critters that are using that ecosystem. That's great. Here's an example of that. My business partner, Stella, and I from Capital Nature, we set up a project at City Wildlife downtown in DC. They rehab wild animals. They did a little pollinator garden right outside their parking lot on the tracks right next to the metro. And so we decided to go and make a project there because we would go every month or so and observe what kind of critters were using their pollinator garden as a home. And so that was a way for us to see each month, like, oh, who's coming through here, that type of thing. And also City Wildlife likes to be able to see all the different species that have been discovered in something that they've created. So again, community engagement. So let's talk about BioBlitzes. One of my friends from the BioBlitz that I did last week explained it much. We were doing an info session last week. It's a census of nature. That's all this text I have on the right. It's a census of nature. That's the easiest way to do it. Basically, somebody decides over a period of time and a geographic boundary and what you're looking for. That's it. So for example, last weekend, the Anacostia BioBlitz is the Anacostia River watershed, which is not just along the river, but it's the whole watershed. So everything that's going into it. They did a 4-day Anacostia River BioBlitz, and I do have a slide for that in a second. Actually, I can probably just go down to it real quick. Yeah. Okay. So these are the results. So the next day, when we did the Anacostia BioBlitz last year, we did live events. We led mushroom walks and tree walks, and we were down there in Kingman Island and doing all kinds of stuff. Everything was virtual this year, meaning everyone was on their own. So people were just going out there doing this on their own. And if you can see, more observations, more species identified, more people are doing it.
less identifiers, but things are still trickling in. Identifiers means how many random people are going on there and helping with identifications. So we're very pleased with these results, that even during the pandemic, people were able to go in there. And I can't see because everybody's picture. Let me see if I can move people's pictures so I can see that. Yeah, there we go. The observations, notice more observations, way more species. And then my favorite was the fungi. Notice 23 last year, but 113 this year. And I like to say that I probably contributed to some of that, maybe just a little bit. Okay, all right. Another BioBlitz that I want to talk about is the City Nature Challenge. I've mentioned that before. And what it is a global BioBlitz. You know, again, this gathering of people over a 4-day period to go and make observations. And the DC area has been involved in the City Nature Challenge for 4 years now. And each year we just kind of get better and better. This year, I'm going to go over the stats on the next slide. It's just grown immensely. In fact, let me just show you that first real quick. So this is in 2016, the LA Natural History Museum challenged the California Academy of Sciences to a friendly duel of like, let's see how many people we can get outside using iNaturalist. It was so amazingly popular that they decided to do it the next year, and they invited other cities, and that's when DC came in and got involved. If you notice the exponential growth in observations and species, then we went global so that other countries were joining us. We were competing against Jakarta and Tokyo and Rome. It was amazing. And each year the cities go up, and I'm sure it'll be even bigger in 2021. And so you can just see how everything exponentially grew because people were really getting into it. But the regional organizers of the City Nature Challenge, we decided, hey, why just do it for 4 days? Let's do it for the whole month. So we made April in our area City Nature Month, and you can see the stats. Tons of observers, tons of observations, and it was just an amazing, just a great way for people to get outdoors and make the observations. On the right, you'll see all the stats about 244 cities and how many observations and just how many people participated. It's a really great event. And I'm on the planning for next year. We're actually having our first calls next week. The challenge is next year at these dates where we are observing for a period. Then there's like a 5-day period where everybody uploads their pictures and IDs them, and then they announce the results. Another BioBlitz that I wanted to mention that's going on right now, if you're interested, is the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust Nearby Nature BioBlitz. So you can find that on on iNaturalist and join that. It's going on for the whole month. So anything that you observe that's within Virginia is going to go on that. So I highly recommend that you join that. Last year I participated actually through the Fairfax Master Naturalist. There was the Fairfax County Bug BioBlitz, and that was super fun for us to kind of go out to different spots and try to see how many bugs we could find during one particular week. So what happens with the data? You're like, oh, I'm putting up all this stuff. What's happening to it? Oh my gosh. Well, all of these data points are getting gathered and they're getting submitted, the research grade ones. And I apologize, I actually didn't go through that, and I will go through that in a second. GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, it's this international network that gathers all this data, and people use that hub of data for their research papers and such, and so to validate things. And so that's where all of our data is going. Let me back up and say the research grade. So research grade, we sort of touched it when I was showing you a sample observation. Research grade is when it's something wild and 2 or 3 people have crowdsourced validated it so that it's been validated. Casual grade is something that is captive cultivated. So that's not going to be uploaded for research. Casual grade could also be something where there's no location indicated. If there's no location, they can't use that. They can't use that pinpoint of data. So that would also be casual. So you're either going to be casual or research grade. So using all this data, what are people doing? And we're going to, somebody asked about the phenology. And the phenology, is the study of the timing of biological events. They're able to use this information to watch how things are changing in terms of their phenology. Are birds coming through earlier or later? Are things sprouting earlier or later? That type of thing. All these things, it's really helpful to see the differences in the changes based on the observations we make. So that's how they use it. That's how you could use the data. Let's see, questions. I feel like, oh yeah, I guess that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions? And I feel like I might have missed something. So are there any questions and things that I missed?
Yeah, there are a few other questions that came in, and
Great.
I'll read them to you.
Great.
But anyway, let me just say, first of all, that was phenomenal. Thank you. I learned a
Oh,
whole lot.
great.
So first question is, people have commented on my submissions, but how do people find my submissions? And really my question is, how do I find other people's submissions?
Great. What I would do is I would definitely go on the desktop interface. And so if you've made an observation, people are going to see it. It's public. You know, it's a public database. And so if you take a picture tonight and go up and you know, people can see that. And then if you want to find people and observations, I'm going to, let's see if I can get back out and go share. Sorry, let me get to the live screen again. How did I do that? I think I need to, I'm sharing my screen. Hold on for a second. No, not escape. I think I can pull this down. Sorry, guys. All right, well, if I can't go to it, basically how you can see other people's observations is if you go on to iNaturalist, and even just the front page, there's a search. And so if you want to search by taxa, like if you just want to know, we did a little example there with fungi, you could put in, you want to see the birds in Virginia, the birds in Fairfax County, the birds in North America. That's how you're going to be able to see other people's stuff. And then each observation, you know, has a person attached to it. So you can click on that person and see see everything that they've done. So like I said, I've made friends with people based on observations and comments that have been going back and forth. Because once I've seen who the experts are that are chiming in and saying, yes, Anna, you're correct, this is this, then I can even just thank them. I can just go be like, thanks, Luca, for identifying my turtle for me, you know? One lesson that I learned this year was sometimes you'll take a picture that has multiple species. And so, for example, I took a picture of a log that had two species of turtle, and I didn't know that at the time. So I uploaded it, and the experts got back and said, well, which one are you trying to identify, Anna? Because there's one on the left and one on the right. So I thought I could be smart and like go and Photoshop like a little circle around it, and then put in the notes like, I'd like to the thing on the right, the circled one. Well, I learned from the iNaturalist developers that they do not want you to manipulate the photos as such because it messes with their artificial intelligence. They don't want to train the artificial intelligence to learn about somebody notating circles around their pictures. So it's easier just when you're making the observation to put in the notes, there's a comment, you can make a comment and say, looking to identify the species on the left, looking to identify the species on the right. Then I could upload that picture again and do looking to identify the species on the right. So I can use the same pictures for two different observations, but I can't combine species in one observation. That was a long answer, sorry. Other questions?
Yes, okay, several more. How many photographs should be submitted for each species for ID?
You know, I think it depends on the species. Like I said, when I showed you the picture of the seed ball from the American sweet gum, so indicative, like that should be easily identified. But a tree, I would say a minimum of 4 with the example that I gave. Things that are going to, so it's the leaves, the bark, any seeds, and the whole tree itself. Like those are starters. So there is no catch-all number for like how many, like you should do 5 for each. It's not like that at all. It's just how many, like, as you start studying these different species, you're going to kind of know that, well, there's the only difference between this for this particular, let's see, this question mark, there's just the question mark one, but then there's also the comma, right? So they're going to be different. So you want to take as many pictures as you think that are going to help people identify it. That's pretty much it. So it's like mushrooms. I went over the mushrooms, definitely the top, but definitely the bottom. Like, try not to ever submit a picture of a mushroom on iNaturalist with just the top, because, you know, people won't look at it because they don't have enough information. So you just want to provide enough information to everybody.
I just should mention that someone mentioned to me recently, pointed out to me that data storage actually is an energy intensive thing. So it made me realize that although I've been doing exactly what you said, I probably shouldn't do it 100 times for the same species. worthless photos.
Right, right. I mean, they, the amount of data that these guys are managing right now, it's overwhelming for them. I mean, they have a very small ragtag team, you know, and so if everybody is just uploading blurry photos and not even saying what tax is, so there's like, you know, hundreds and thousands of unknown pictures that blurry, it's really slowing down the system and it's not doing anyone any good. So, yeah.
And it's carbon intensive. So.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one was, I was only able to upload one pic per observation from my Android phone. How can I upload multiple pics per observation?
Good question. When you make that observation, there should be, once you do the first picture, there should be a little box next to it with a plus sign. And the plus sign will let you add pictures either from the camera directly or from your gallery. So there's always a, there should be a little plus sign there. Yeah.
Very good. Can you upload data from other GPS apps like Gaia GPS, etc.? Also, do people have favorite gimbals for phones for stable picture taking?
So for the gimbal question, it's funny, I have a gimbal but don't use it much, so I'm not gonna, I haven't used it a lot, so I can't recommend that. If anyone else has gimbal suggestions, please definitely put them in the chat. I have used a gimbal a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then the first question, I'm sorry, can you repeat the first question?
Can you upload data from other GPS apps like Gaia GPS?
I know that there is a, on iNaturalist's FAQ page where they have all these great little very short tutorials, and one of them has to do with using GPS apps when you're taking pictures with your phone. So for example, and I've tried this, I haven't, so yeah, I think the answer to the question is I believe yes, because they show you how you can do it. So like if I'm out in a park and I'm taking pictures with my camera, let's say I take 100 pictures of birds with my camera, and I'm also running the app, the GPS app, that's tracking me while I walk. I'm saving that walk file and the coordinates. There's ways where I can take that GPS coordinate and bring it into, I think it's the different photo apps like Photoshop and stuff like that. And you can kind of marry the two so that it will, based on timestamps of your photos, it's going to match your timestamp to the GPS coordinate. And that way you're getting it all sucked in all at once. So I know that's the application of my only experience of using GPS applications for this.
Yeah, I've been doing this. Someone showed me how. Now I do it every time. And I've been using Lightroom to get them together. That's the only reason I use Lightroom, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that would probably be a, I don't know, maybe Margaret, you and I could work off online and making like a little like quick tutorial on that too, because I think that would be helpful for people. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next question. Is the data open source?
I believe so. Yeah. If you're, I mean, what you're submitting is open to everybody, if that's what you mean. I think that even the development of it is open source, but that's something that I'm not quite sure about. So I'm definitely gonna ask, unless I'm misinterpreting the question. Is when they say open source, are they talking about the development of the app, or are they talking about the data from their pictures and stuff?
Well, please chat in what you meant.
Yeah.
I think that you can request data from iNaturalist, right? If you're a researcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can designate whether you want your photos to be public domain or require crediting.
Exactly. So
I make mine all public domain because what the heck, if it helps somebody, they can have it.
Yeah, there's I think sometimes professional photographers might have some sensitivity about maybe having some of theirs. So yeah, you can definitely manage what the rights, like what the usage rights are in terms of of what pictures.
Okay, apparently we did answer the question, which was whether you can get the data. Okay, then the next. When I take multiple photos of one thing, I sometimes change up which photo is tagged as first, as this changes the suggestions that iNaturalist gives me, which can be very helpful.
Oh, that's a good tip. I notice, when I'm doing a bulk upload of a couple pictures, I try to put the one that I think is going to be the most easily identifiable by the app. If you put the one that's like the context shot that's far away, that's probably not going to get you some different suggestions than if I do the close-up of the mushroom on the log. But if I do the far away picture, they might try to suggest what type of log it is, that type of thing. So that's a good point. Yeah, definitely.
And if you're actually doing this on your computer at home, then each photo is initially separate, so you can go look up what it suggests for each one before you drag them together into one.
Yep. And that's, I mentioned, I didn't really demo that, but again, when you upload, let's say you upload 100 pictures, they have them all on your workspace there, and you can, they call them cards, and you can just drag and drop like things together. I do as an organizational thing for me personally, and no one has to do this, but this is what I do. When I'm uploading my pictures onto my computer and putting them in a file, or I use Dropbox. I actually, for my own ease, I often put them in a folder. Like I actually do them by species because I like to learn the species. So if I took 5 pictures of a mushroom, I'm going to put it in a folder. And then when I find out later what the species is, I'm actually going to go put the name of the species in there. So I actually upload by species. I don't typically just upload 100 photos and then try to move them around. But do whatever workflow works best for you, definitely.
And speaking of that, I was just going to comment that I have found this an amazingly wonderful place to store my photos, so that I can then delete them off my computer because I'm running out of room on my computer. And the photos are then all there. They're very slightly, have slightly fewer pixels, or however you put that, but not a lot. And they're like all tagged, right? And you can go sort them and search for them.
What interface is that you use?
I just meant that after I upload to iNatural, I delete them off my computer, because there they are, stored on iNatural.
Oh, okay. That's
labeled ahead of time, you know. It's
That's
searchable. It's fantastic.
One question that I have though is, if you went to download,
they're still pretty good. They're a little bit less sharp. So you wouldn't want to do that with a precious photo.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to look really quickly at other notes that came in.
Yes, there's more.
Somebody had a question beforehand that I'm still trying to get information about, and it had to do with, says they were taking pictures, the iNat placed their picture like a block away from where they were, or something like that. And so Margaret and I were discussing that, and we think it could be a bunch of different variables. It could be GPS, it could be bandwidth at the time, it could be your device. I don't want to say it's an iNaturalist problem. I think it could be different things. So it's one of the questions that I have out to the developers. So if I get an answer back on that before we respond to everybody in a follow-up email, then I'll note that as well. Yeah. You guys have great questions. Really quickly, I just wanted to plug something that I'm doing next week as well. If you're curious about community science, which is also citizen science, the Audubon Natural Society has an amazing series of naturalist hours. They do about 2 a week. And they're for a small minimal fee. I think like for members it's $12, for non-members it's like $15 or something like that. It's like an hour long, and it's on all kinds of topics. And I've already given one on iNaturalist for them, but my business partner Stella there, she and I are giving one on just community science, what it is, and like sample projects in the area locally and globally. So if you're interested in learning about that, I highly recommend you going and checking that out. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can all look at each other and stuff. Yeah, great. You guys had great questions. That was really good, keeping me on my toes.
Oh, that's very illuminating. All right, how can I set up my projects of the places that I go, maybe to do phenology about specific plants in specific areas from year to year? Well, I think we're going to address that in an email to you about how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then someone said, when I download the app, it asks for access to all my photos. Are they accessing all photos in my Android gallery, or just the photos I submit?
I think when you're giving access to iNaturalist, you're giving it to your whole gallery. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay.
How can I set up my projects of the, oh no, I had that one already. I think we're done. And do you want to say anything about the identify feature? I've kind of been thinking that since I put up 2,000 observations, I ought to be helping with identification. But at first I thought, oh, how could I help? Because I don't know much. And then I realized, well, I do know the difference between a dog and a dogwood. I can at least get it started.
Yeah. So are you talking about like if someone wants to be an identifier?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what you can do is you can, there's a whole module on that, but you can, I was wondering if I should go to the page or let's see if I can do that real quick. Stop. There we go. Am I still, or I'm not sharing, am I not sharing my screen anymore,
Not
right?
yet.
Okay,
Go ahead. Sure
I will come by and back in a second. Okay, I'm just getting on the identify page. There we go. Okay, so let me go back and share my screen.
I sort of felt like I was just, contributing to at least make things a little easier for the real experts by saying what I did know.
Sure. So when you go to iNaturalist up here in this is again on the desktop. So it's a lot easier. You want to do this on the desktop. And again, and in fact, this is a suggestion that I made to iNaturalist. When we were trying to compare what you can do on the phone versus what you can do on the app, I asked them if they had a list. These are all the things you can do, and they don't, and they said they're going to make one. So I'll be happy when that happens. But so here I've just gone to identify, and I haven't even done any searching or anything. It literally is just pulling up stuff that needs like help identifying. And so if you're going through these pictures and you see something that you're like, oh, I know what that is, you would, let's see, gosh, I'm trying to see if there's, this is obviously fungi. So you would just pick one. Let's just pick the fungi one. And now I can see the picture a little bit closer. I can see if there's more pictures. I can see where it was taken. It was taken in Pennsylvania and when it was taken. You can add an ID. So when you click on add an ID, you can go and suggest a species. And so, and you can even put notes why, like, well, I think I see that the margins, or I think I see the brown lines that go around it. Like, you can say your reasoning for it, and make that comment, and then that'll go into the record. And that's just going to help more and more people identify stuff. Because like I said, specialists, people who love lichen, for example, they have, the people that love to identify lichen, for example, they have something set, they have their settings set up so that they get alerted when someone makes a lichen observation, so that maybe once a week they can go click on the lichen, do a search for lichen, and they can just go through one night. I know some lichen specialists, they can just go through one night while they're eating their dinner and just be like, yep, this is that one, yep, this is that one. And so, these people are helping us do that. So very easy to just make a suggestion. Yeah. And again, I would try to do this from your desktop.
Okay. Another question. Let's see. If someone IDs a pic, they would be an identifier, so the ID is correct? Question mark.
Not. Yeah. If it became research grade, like, so if I made an identification and after my identification of this made this a research grade, see right here it says needs ID, but if it made research grade, yeah, then it would make it calls me I'm an identifier. So under my dashboard, that's going to add one more species to my list that, oh, this is a species that Anna identified. So yeah, if you identify something and it becomes research grade, then yes, you will be considered an identifier. And there could be 10 identifiers. So for example, if this were a picture of a tulip poplar, or excuse me, tulip tree leaf, there could be 20 of us that, so that's funny if you think about it. If you wanted to be like superstar identifier, you could just kind of like go on there and pick all the things and just say like, yep, and you're identifier. So,
once, if you agree with someone and make it research grade, probably it won't be looked at afterwards, unless it's something really cool.
That's true.
So don't do it if you don't.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't suggest that. I don't suggest doing that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, now comment: for anyone who uses the app BirdNet to record and ID bird songs, you can share your recordings to iNaturalist very easily.
Excellent. I did mention that briefly, but sounds, yeah. So here's an example for those of you that are bird people. I'm a bird nerd. We have two crows in the area. We have the American crow and we have the fish crow. They look very identical. I'm pretty much here just be able to tell them from their call. So if I'm doing an observation of what is a crow species, I will try to use my phone sound app to capture the sound so that I can add that sound bite to the observation, so it's definitely definitive that it's an American crow or a fish crow. So with bird calls, yeah, definitely, that's a great suggestion. In fact,
we forgot. Did you want to mention the Seek app?
Oh yeah, thanks. There's actually two other. Let's see. I have. Let me get out of here, and Okay, so a few years ago, oops, sorry, slides if permitting. Okay, I always have extra slides. Basically, this is an app that was created a couple of years ago by the same folks that made iNaturalist. And I didn't say this before, it said it on the top slide, but iNaturalist was created by the California Academy of Sciences and National Geographic. It was a sort of a joint project. They wanted to make an app that was a little more family oriented, that was gamified, that could be used with families, that wasn't necessarily geotagging it. It was more about learning species, but not necessarily reporting the species. So it's called Seek by iNaturalist. And what's great about it is all you have to do is hold your phone up. You don't even have to take the picture, and it's gonna use its AI to identify it. So this picture in the middle, the monarch, if you see the green dots that go across the screen here underneath monarch, basically, oh gosh, sorry. This dot all the way on the far right, that means you've got it down to the species level, the lowest possible identification. If they couldn't figure out that this was a monarch, it may just get to this one over here where they, it's the genus, but not the species. And so it's great because once you click, and then if you do take the picture, this picture on the right here, that it tells you its scientific name, if it's native, about it, its phenology. We were talking about phenology. It's going to give you a year-long map of like the months that it peaks, how many observations been observed worldwide, how many observations that have made just in your area. So just by taking that one picture, you get all kinds of information, okay? So then they did badges and challenges, which is super fun. They gamified it. I think I just got like I just got a badge this week where they'll say like, try to find 10 tree species or something like that, or try to find, 10 mushrooms. So they gamified it. Well, after people were using it, they're like, oh, it'd be really nice if we could make this like include for iNaturalist too. So they decided a year-ish ago to add the capability to add your Seek pictures to iNaturalist. So it's a relatively new feature, but after you take the picture, at the bottom of the screen, there'll be a button that says, do you want to post this to iNaturalist? And if you say yes, it's going to go up to iNaturalist, so it's going to count. Okay, it's going to count as an observation. Now, I will tell you that my use with Seek and posting to iNaturalist, a little message comes up and says, it may take a minute for this to upload. So it's kind of slow. And so if I'm doing a bunch of stuff and I don't want to wait for it to post to iNaturalist, I don't do that, but you can, okay? And then the other one I wanted to mention, let's go down one more slide. So yeah, here's learning about the different species and stuff like that. Do I have, oh, no, I guess I didn't put in there, is called Picture This. Now, there are a bunch of different apps out there. There's that I'm sure a lot of you guys use. These are the apps that I use, but I know there are other apps. I'm not just saying just, use these apps. The one that I started using a couple weeks ago, which I'm finding to be phenomenal personally, and I thought I had made a slide, sorry, is called Picture This. And it's more geared towards gardeners. So I think you guys will like it. I am not a gardener because it includes information like the soil it needs and the conditions it needs and that type of thing. And so I was finding that Picture This was actually getting me really quick suggestions, a little bit quicker than Seek. And so a lot of times I'll make an observation and I'll try it on iNaturalist, I'll try it on Seek, and then lately I've been trying it on just to test to kind of see like what they'll come up with. But Picture This is something that I would definitely, especially if you're gardening, I would definitely give it a try. Picture This, yeah.
No, thanks. And with the Seek, it's really enhanced my experience because you can just walk through the woods and hold your camera up to one thing after another, boom, boom, boom. You learn so much. It's
exactly. And I want to say about Seek that you need to hold your camera, like let's say if you're trying to do a leaf or something, like I found that like if you're just doing like a plain leaf, it's sometimes not going to get you down to the species level. So it just depends, because if it's just a broad leaf, it can't always do that. So a lot of times, and you'll play with it to get those green dots that go across your screen. You'll just kind of like whatever you're observing, just kind of walk around and jiggle your phone a little bit just to kind of get it. And you'll literally watch those dots go up and down of like how close you can get to an identification. So you just need to play with it a little bit, but it's super fun. Super fun. Yeah.
That's very fun. All right, here's another question. Is there a way to flag invasive species on iNaturalist?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't think there's an invasive like button you can push or anything, but I am going to go and ask like Margaret, Alonzo Abagadas from Arlington. Alonzo Abagadas, he's the resources manager for Arlington County. They actually use data from iNaturalist to help with their resource management, natural resource management. So when they're doing invasive species polls, if they see that some park, a bunch of people have done observations of like X, like Japanese stiltgrass or something like that, like they'll actually change their work plan around these observations to help with that maintenance. So I know that they're using the data when they see things that they come up as, but I can't say I honestly don't think there's like a button, but maybe people have set up projects. So that would be a good project actually. If we set up a project, say, if we wanted to do Northern Virginia or Fairfax County or whatever, and you can tell it like only accept observations of these things. And if you put the list of like, 100 invasives in there, anytime they pop up, that could be some way to do it. That's a really good question.
You don't need to flag it as invasive. It flags itself because it already will tell you whether it's an introduced species. So that's built into it, and you can sort to just search for introduced or just search for native if you want to. All right, so here's another question. This may be beyond the scope of this call, but it seems really expensive. What's their business model? How do they raise money or somehow monetize all this? How is it free? And what they say is that if the product is free, that you're the product. So are we the product or not?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question that I cannot answer. But Margaret, are you capturing the chat? You're capturing the chat with all these questions, so we can. Yeah, anything that I can't answer, like we'll definitely pop over to the iNat folks and see if they can help us with that. Yeah.
Well, they do fundraising. That I do now because they ask you to donate. Any other questions?
Really great, really great. I'll stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing.
Well, Anna, thank you so much. You've put so much time into this, both before to get ready and now with us running over. So it was really phenomenal. Thank you. Very
thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. Follow me on iNat, or like if you guys have any questions, I'm Anna at capitalnature.org. Capitalnature.org is my nonprofit. So if you want to go and sign up for our newsletter, we send out like a monthly newsletter of cool nature things happening. But you can follow us on social media. We're also on Facebook and Instagram for Capital Nature. Like every other week or so, we put our 5 nature faves of things to do in the area. So we'd love to see some people joining in. Yeah. Thanks so much,
everybody.
All right.
All right. Very good.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Good night, everybody.